Hey guys, welcome to the channel. And today we are going to learn about custom hooks and when to use them. So let's get started. I have a application here. It is a React app and it's running in the browser. You can see, and you can see two different components here. One is the user profile component and one is this navigation component. Let's browse the code for them. If I go inside the source components and the user profile component, you can see the user profile component. And what are we doing here is, so we have the UI here. You can see the user.name, user.email, user.username. And then you can see that we have a use effect, which fetches a random user from a random API and save that inside our state. So you can see in our state, user set user. Then also we also have a loading, set loading, also an error. Also, when we fetch the user, firstly, we check for the local storage. If it exists in the local storage, then we return the local storage user. Else we go ahead and fetch it from the API, right? And then we show it here. Now imagine you want to use this same data in a different component. So let's say if we go into our browser, you can see, I'm going to zoom in. So you can see the user profile data here, but what if I want to say, hi, Leanne here, right? Instead of just saying navigation, I want to say, hi, Leanne. In order to do that, I have a couple of ways I can solve this. The first one being that I can just copy this data and just paste it in that component, right? The other approach is maybe I can move this state into a parent component of these components. So for example, I can just move this into the app.tsx, so user profile name drop, and I just move that logic here, right? Or I can use Redux or a state management application where I will be able to reuse the data, right, in both of these components. But the main problem in all of these approaches that I still have to like make the API request. Like if I use a Redux or a state management library, I still have to make this API request either at the parent level or in multiple component, right? And I don't want to do that. And that's where custom hooks comes in. Even before using custom hooks, what are hooks? So you will see a lot of built-in hooks. You can see use state, use effect, all of these are hooks. They let you introduce functionality into React components. So for example, a React component is a function, right? So it should not have any way of, saving the state or defining effect, right? And that's where hooks comes in. So hooks allow you to have these different type of functionality in your plain pure functions, right? Now you can also create custom hooks. Custom hooks are piece of functionality or piece of logic that you want to share between multiple components. So just like functions, but for hooks. All right. So for example, we have this use effect here, right? And now imagine we want the same functionality in that different component. Now either I can copy paste it there or we can create a reusable custom hook. So let's do that. So instead of copying this logic, we'll create a custom hook and then use it here. So how can you create a custom hook? It's simple. They start with use. So the name of that custom hook will always have to start with use. That's how React identify them. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say const use user. So that's our custom hooks. It started with use user, and then we are going to write our logic. Custom hooks are normal functions. So one important thing about custom hooks is that you can use other custom hooks or React built-in hooks inside them. So I can actually use state inside it, use effect inside it. So let's refactor our component. So I created a use user. Now I'll copy everything that I need to be reused in different components, right? So for example, I'm just going to copy this function first and foremost. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. So this use effect will run when the custom hook loads for the first time, right? So because it has an empty dependency, right? The other thing is you can see like we don't have these set user set loading and all these states. So I'm actually going to go here and define all of this. So const user set user, equal to use state, right? And either it can be user or null. So, and by default, it's going to be null. Then we have a state for loading. So set loading and set loading equal to use state. It's going to be a Boolean. So by default, false. And then for error, error set error equal to use state. By default, and it's going to be a string or it can be null. And by default, it's going to be null, right? Also, it can be of type error. So I'm also going to include that as well. Now we have actually moved all of our logic that we wanted to reuse in the other component into this custom hooks. And now what we're going to do is use this custom hook inside our component. So I'm just going to copy it here and paste it here. But you can see like we still need all these loading, error, and user state variable inside our component. So what we're going to do is we're going to return all of this. So return user, loading, and error. And now we'll go here and destructure this object, user, loading, and error. We're just gonna name it error. Also here, we're just gonna rename it to error. Now, this will work exactly if this piece of code is inside the component. And we just extracted it out into this custom hook. And now we can use this custom hook in many places. So what will happen now is that whenever these states will get updated, the component will re-render and these values will be updated as well. So it's the same thing, we just moved it outside the component so we can use it in multiple places. So for example, if I go to probably does not exist on string error, that's okay. We can just change it and change it to array for now, any for now, and this will be fine. Okay. And if you reload it, you can see like, you can see all the values. So for example, if I go here and set some other value, so for example, I go here and say name equal to anything, right? And ID equal to nothing, like it's a number. So 1, email equal to nothing at nothing, right? And username equal to, something. Just remove it for now. You'll see if I reload it, you can see, all these values, because what's happening, there is a user in our local storage and it's updating the user, right? And this user is getting updated and then it's being used here. I'm just gonna put it back, right? Now let's try to use this in a different component. So I'll just copy. So first and foremost, I'm just gonna copy this and extract it out of this file. And I'll just create a new file here, use user.ts, and paste it here. Also export, not from here, but I'm just gonna export defaulted. Export default, use user. I'm just gonna import everything here, use state, use effect. Also use profile. I need this interface. So I'm also going to export it from here. Export interface, right? And then just going to import it here. Use user, right? And we don't need it anymore here. And everything still works, right? Great. Now we're going to use it inside the other component. So I'm just going to copy use user and go inside the nav drop And here I'm gonna import use user. So import use user from dot slash hooks slash use user. And you can see the title, right? So instead of title, I'm just gonna say hi, and I'm gonna import user. So const user from use user and user dot name here, right? It's gonna save, and you can see Highland ground, right? Now this is cool, right? So you can see, so what we did is from the user profile component, we extracted the functionality into this custom hook, which we called use user, and we used that custom hook is inside the nav dropdown. We were able to get the user and then use that username here. Now imagine, so now the data is right now the data is coming from local storage. Imagine if we clear the local storage, right? So local storage dot clear, and if we reload it, you can see loading user data, and then it loaded the data and then shown it here, right? So this is one of the example of how can you use custom hooks. I have created other hooks as well, which I want to show you. So for example, use click outside. So for example, what this does is it basically monitor a HTML div or any kind of like HTML element, and then whenever you click outside of it, perform a function. So for example, use click outside is used inside nav dropdown. And if you check out the code here, so I created a ref here. You can see that ref is assigned to this div. So now what I did here is use this use click outside hook, provided it the ref, and then use the function. So this is like one other way you can also use custom hooks. So custom hooks are like functions, right? For example, in use click outside, you can take parameters as well. So params as well, right? So for example, I'll go here in the nav dropdown and I say use click outside. I provide the ref, which is the drop down ref. And I say, whenever you click on this function, alert click outside. Let's do that, right? Yeah. So I click on it, I click outside, right? The way it works is very simple. If you go inside use click outside, you can see I have this event listener, right? I created a function which just say whenever there is a mouse down or test start event, call the hand click outside function, and then in the hand click outside function, I basically check for the ref. If it's the current target, then call the callback event, and callback event is passed from the outside, right? So for example, let's when I drop down again, instead of alert, we can just say set is open to false, right? And it will work. So I click outside it, you can see like it's getting closed, right? Really good example of creating a custom hook is this. Again, if you have to use one event listener in multiple places in your application, custom hooks are really great way to handle that, and especially in React, because with the event listeners, you have to remove them as well, right? So you add event listener to a, maybe to window, to the document, to an element, but you also have to remove them when you unmount, right? So, and now this is a good example of it. So for example, we wanted to use the Windows width, right? So what we created is created an event listener. Whenever window resizes, we call handle resize, which basically set the window width and then return that window width from the hook, right? Now I can just use this hook anywhere. So for example, I'm gonna go into my user profile and just going to add a new p here, p element, and I'm gonna say strong. Let's just do that and say window width, right? And I'm gonna say window width here. I'm just gonna use that hook. So const window width from use window width, right? So it doesn't return an object, it just return a variable, right? And we're just gonna use it. It's not string, it's strong. And let's see if this works. So you can see 1130 and let me resize it. And you can see, right? So one another benefit of using hooks are that you are able to encapsulate that logic inside a hook, right? So for example, you have to write all that logic inside this component, right? But now you don't have to do it. And you can use this component in multiple places. Not the component. You can use this hook in multiple places and your code still looks sleek, right? So yeah, this is pretty much it. I hope you liked it. Just let me know in the comments what other topics I should cover in my videos. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.